Welcome to the deep dive. If you feel like you're just drowning in global news, high stakes diplomacy one minute, terrible humanitarian crises the next, and then suddenly you're looking at your own bills wondering why everything costs so much. Well, this deep dive is definitely for you. We've got a really diverse stack of sources today, and our mission really is to pull out the key decisions, the surprising, maybe hidden economic factors, and the critical human context that sort of ties all these big global things together. We want you to leave with specifics you can actually remember.
Yeah, and that's a great way to frame it because the common thread here really is about balancing risk. Whether it's geopolitical risk in huge trade deals or the immediate physical risk people face in conflict zones, or even that quiet financial risk hitting us closer to home.
Right. Risk assessment on every level.
Exactly. So let's start with the biggest scale, global diplomacy.
Okay, let's kick off with that summit in Busan, South Korea. President Trump, Chinese President Xi Jinping, first time they'd actually met face-to-face in 6 years, right?
That's right. 6 years. And I think the expectation generally was for a lot of friction.
But the public comments afterwards,
Yeah.
well, they painted a very different picture.
Very different, yeah.
Trump actually told reporters he'd rate the meeting, which was nearly 2 hours long, a 12 out of 10, said they agreed to almost everything.
Right.
He even called Xi a friend, a great leader of a great country.
Quite the assessment. So what was actually agreed on to prompt that kind of enthusiasm?
Well, it seems like the enthusiasm really came from some clear trade-offs, things aimed at stabilizing the economies, pretty quickly.
Okay. Like what specifically?
The big headline was the U.S. lowering tariffs on Chinese exports, down from 57% to 47%.
Wow, a 10-point cut. That's substantial. And the reason...
Trump directly linked it to a commitment from Xi to decrease the flow of fentanyl coming into the U.S.
Okay, so a direct quid pro quo there. Fentanyl for tariffs. What about other trade goods? Did China offer concessions?
They did, yeah, especially in agriculture. China agreed to start repurchasing U.S. soybeans again.
Which is huge because that pause had been really, really tough on American farmers, called detrimental in many reports.
Absolutely. And there was also movement on critical materials, those rare earth minerals.
Exactly. China had put limits on exporting those earlier this month, causing a bit of a panic, a real roadblock for global supply chains.
Right.
Well, that restriction is now off the table, for 1 year at least. And in return, the U.S. is apparently scaling back some of its own export restrictions, too. So sort of a mutual de-escalation there.
Okay. And energy was part of this package, too. Something about Alaska.
Yes, China agreed to buy American energy, specifically oil and gas from Alaska. The relevant U.S. secretaries are supposed to meet soon to hammer out the details on that.
So tariffs, soybeans, minerals, energy. I mean, that's a pretty significant list. Sounds like a major effort to stabilize things.
It does. It feels like both sides really wanted to avoid what Xi Jinping apparently called that vicious cycle of mutual retaliation. He acknowledged, frictions are normal, but said the goal should be partners and friends.
Interesting framing.
But, if we look at the bigger picture, it tells us what's important right now. Trade stability, domestic issues like fentanyl. But look at what wasn't really covered in depth, or maybe at all.
Like what?
Well, Trump confirmed they talked about Russia's war in Ukraine. But he specifically said they did not discuss China buying Russian oil, which is a huge factor in that conflict's economics.
And the elephant in the room, perhaps, Taiwan?
Correct. Trump confirmed Taiwan didn't come up, an issue he'd been pretty vocal about recently, just wasn't on the agenda for this meeting.
So they tackled the immediate economic stuff, but kicked the really thorny geopolitical cans down the road, essentially.
Seems that way. Secure the immediate gains, defer the hardest parts.
Okay, so the cost of conflict, the consequences when diplomacy maybe gets deferred, it becomes horribly clear when we shift focus now to Sudan. We have just devastating reports coming out after Fasher fell to the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, after an 18-month siege.
Yeah, the accounts emerging from Fasher are. They're about immediate, profound brutality. This is really the sharpest human cost we're discussing today. It's incredibly grim.
We're seeing sources detailing violence right inside El Fasher South Hospital. RSF fighters reportedly went in and killed 6 wounded people, soldiers and civilians, women included, right in their hospital beds.
It's just horrific.
Another nurse saw 8 patients killed in the emergency ward, and there are reports of RSF fighters going house to house, beating people, shooting them.
The joint forces, the groups aligned with the Sudanese army, they estimate over 2,000 civilians have been killed just since the city fell. And the UN has mentioned videos surfacing that show, quote, dozens of unarmed men being shot or lying dead.
It's just awful. And this feeds into what's already the world's largest displacement crisis,
The
right?
largest, yeah. The scale is, it's hard to comprehend. Over 10 million people displaced inside Sudan. Another 4 million have fled to neighboring countries.
Hmm.
And now, the fate of those trying to get out of El Fasher specifically, aid groups are deeply worried.
Understandably. What are they seeing?
Well, the fear is about the thousands who are missing, who haven't made it to safety yet. Aid workers, like from the Norwegian Refugee Council, they're saying only a trickle of people have actually reached the town of Tawila, which is a known refuge point.
It's just a trickle.
Yeah. And their advocacy manager was quoted asking, where are the others? That tells the horror of the journey. It's a chilling question.
And the journey itself, it's not just dangerous physically, it's also become this sort of criminal enterprise, people being held for ransom.
Exactly. Survivors are reporting that thousands of civilians and even former soldiers who might be seen as valuable, they're trapped because they simply can't afford the ransom demands.
How much are we talking?
The figures range from 5 million to 10 million Sudanese pounds. That translates to roughly 6,000 to 12,000 pounds sterling. An impossible sum for most people there.
Unbelievable. Just trapping people in a war zone.
And the personal stories, they really underscore the terror. There's an account from a man named Adam Yagub. He barely escaped being executed by militiamen on camels near a place called Garni.
What did he say?
He said he saw 22 bodies lying near what they called a fake well. It's apparently a trap militias use. They make it look like there's water to lure people desperate from dehydration, and then they attack them. Just brutal.
And when we try to understand this force, the RSF, there's a history here, isn't there?
Yes, and it's absolutely critical context. The RSF grew out of the Janjaweed militia.
The group responsible for the genocide in Darfur back in the early 2000s.
The very same. And the tragic continuity is that the U.S. State Department has already declared that the RSF committed genocide in this current war as well.
So it's a pattern repeating itself.
The devastatingly familiar pattern of violence and displacement, yes.
All right, so we've looked at global deals, horrific conflict. Let's pivot back home now to that third kind of risk you mentioned, the financial kind, that pinch so many of you are feeling. Specifically, car insurance. I mean, the price hikes lately are just wild.
They really are unprecedented. Average premiums are up 55% just since February 2020. 55%. And what's maybe even more startling is that most of that huge jump happened really recently, like between 2022 and 2024.
Okay, why? What is driving this? It can't just be normal inflation pushing costs up that much, that fast.
No, it's more like a perfect storm, really. A combination of factors hitting all at once. First, think about modern cars. They're basically computers on wheels now, right?
Yeah, sensors everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So even a minor fender bender, something that used to be relatively cheap to fix, now often means replacing expensive sensors, radar units, cameras, all sorts of complex electronics. That just sends repair costs soaring.
Okay, tech complexity. What else?
Well, parts are generally more expensive, labor costs for repairs are up, medical bills from accidents keep rising, and then there's driving behavior. Data suggests crashes have actually become more severe since the pandemic.
More severe. Why?
The theory links it to higher speeds. People got used to emptier roads during lockdowns, maybe kept driving faster afterwards. So more serious accidents mean bigger payouts from insurers.
And ultimately, we pay the price in higher premiums.
We do. And you can see the impact on people's behavior. They're shopping around for cheaper insurance at the highest rate since 2020.
Makes sense, but it's clearly a real burden for many.
Oh, absolutely. A consumer survey found 58% of drivers now see their car insurance as a significant financial burden. And over half those people said they've had to cut back on other essential things like food or utilities just to afford their premiums.
That's tough, and it leads to another risk, doesn't it? People just not getting insured at all.
Yeah, and that's the really worrying part for everyone on the road. The percentage of drivers operating without any insurance. It climbed from 12.4% in 2018 to 15.4% in 2023. That's millions more uninsured drivers.
I read this story about Zoe, a pastry chef in Pennsylvania. Her rent went up $400 a month suddenly.
Oof.
Yeah. And she knew it was risky, but she literally couldn't afford her car insurance premium for about 4 weeks. She had to prioritize rent, food. She said she drove everywhere, just terrified, slowing right down at every light, praying she wouldn't get stopped or worse, get into an accident.
That's immense stress. And these costs, they affect big life decisions too, not just month-to-month budgeting.
How so?
Well, look at this family in Washington State. Their 17-year-old son, Josiah, he got his driver's license. Great milestone, right?
Sure.
But adding him to the family's insurance policy would have cost an extra $350 a month.
Wow, $350 just for the teenager.
Yeah. And because of that cost, the family had to postpone getting him a car. He felt, in his words, stuck in this town. So the insurance market itself is now directly shaping or maybe limiting the life choices families can make.
Which brings up a really important point, maybe one people don't think about enough. Even if you have insurance, you might be underinsured.
Critical point. Think
Uh,
about it. If car repairs cost, say, twice what they did just a few years ago because of all that tech we talked about,
right.
then your old liability limits, the amount your policy will pay out, they're suddenly only half as effective, really. A lot of people have insurance plans they set up years ago and haven't reviewed.
And those plans are likely way too low for today's costs.
Exactly. Severely underinsured is probably the reality for many. There's this feeling people say you're paying more and you're getting less. And honestly, you are in terms of relative protection if your limits haven't kept pace.
So the advice is?
Check your liability limits. If you haven't updated them in the last, say, 3 years, you should probably increase them to match today's potential costs. It's crucial protection.
Okay, let's wrap up with two quick contrasting final details, both about security and safety failures, but very different scales. One is tragic, the other almost cinematic. First, that paddleboard tragedy back in 2022. The official report pinpointed some just devastating errors.
Yeah, it's a really painful list of what went wrong. The report is from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch of the MAIB, and it found the tour leaders, well, they were qualified, but only for benign conditions, like calm lakes.
Not fast-flowing rivers, which is what they were on.
Exactly. Not rated for that level of risk. And crucially, they didn't even visit the site beforehand, specifically this dangerous weir. They ignored a flood alert that was active that day.
And didn't they also ignore a warning sign?
They did. A sign right there advising people to get out and carry their boards around the weir. They just paddled straight towards it.
But the equipment itself was also a major issue, right? The leashes.
Huge issue. The ankle leashes they were using were found to be totally unsuitable for fast-flowing water. In those conditions, if you fall off, that type of leash can actually trap you against the board, making it incredibly hard to get free from the force of the water.
Just compounding the danger.
Terribly. And then there were the basic procedural failures. No written risk assessment done for that specific trip. They didn't even collect emergency contact details from the participants.
Which meant huge delays in notifying families afterwards. Just awful.
A cascade of failures, really.
Okay, and then completely different kind of security lapse. Let's touch on that recent Louvre jewelry heist. Fascinating details emerging about how they pulled it off. 5 new arrests just made.
Yeah, it was incredibly bold and efficient, I guess you could say. The robbers hit just after the museum opened, around 9:03 in the morning.
Broad daylight, basically. How'd they get in?
They used a stolen truck that had one of those mechanical lifts on it like construction crews use. They drove it right up and used the lift to get onto a balcony leading into the Gallery of Apollo.
Wow, okay. And once inside?
Pure speed. They used a disc cutter like an angle grinder on the display cases. They were inside the gallery for only 4 minutes.
4 minutes, that's it.
4 minutes. Grabbed the jewels, got out, escaped initially on scooters, then apparently switched to getaway cars.
Incredible audacity. What was the Louvre's reaction, security-wise?
Immediate and extreme. They transferred their most precious jewels, presumably the ones not hit, or maybe recovered pieces too. They moved them straight to the Bank of France's vault.
The Bank of France.
Yep. Now scored 26 meters underground. So a permanent upgrade in security protocol, all because of a 4-minute smash and grab. Hashtag tag outro.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? I mean, from the fine print of a U.S.-China summit, that specific 10% tariff cut right down to the horrific details out of Sudan, and then the numbers behind why your car insurance bill might be giving you sticker shock, that 55% rise.
It really does all circle back to that theme of risk, doesn't it? Especially the risks we don't always see or maybe fail to calculate properly. Like the hidden cost of all that tech inside your car's bumper suddenly making a minor accident incredibly expensive.
Or the unknown number of displaced people in Sudan beyond that small trickle that actually makes to safety. What happens to the rest?
Exactly. Or even the regulatory gap maybe that allowed totally unsuitable safety gear, those leashes, to be used on a dangerous river with fatal consequences. It's often the unseen factors that have the biggest impact.
So maybe the final thought for you, our listener, is this. What essential, maybe invisible variable are you navigating right now? Could be in your finances, your work, maybe even your home life. what needs a bit of a deep dive of your own attention before that hidden risk potentially surfaces as a real crisis? Something to think about today.